Chaos.radio. Music, podcasts, entertainment.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of NEWSWAVE, written, produced and recorded in the heart of Cornwall by the team here at Chaos Radio. I'm your host Tom Howe and I'll be guiding you through some of the insightful guests and exciting news contents that we've enjoyed across Chaos Radio this past week. Now on today's show we join Jake from Jake's Bakes to discuss Cornwall Dining Club, a new pop-up dining initiative bringing global flavours and themed menus to St Austell. We catch up with Nicola Nuttall, Director of Cornwall Climate Care, who explains why their Crowdfunder is vital to keeping free climate education running in schools across the county. As well as that, we take a trip to St Austell to hear from local residents as the King and Queen, no less, tour community projects and met groups supporting young people in the town. We hear from Neil, who is sharing his lived experience as part of a new NHS campaign, talking about decades of undiagnosed social anxiety and the misconceptions that stop people seeking help. And we welcome Ruth Forrest from the HMRC broadcast team to break down what sole traders and landlords need to know as digital tax reporting comes into force from the 6th of April.
NEWSWAVE.
First this week, Cornwall Dining Club is a brand new initiative in St Austell, bringing global flavours to Cornwall through a pop-up concept, offering themed set menus, global cuisines and a brand new restaurant experience to the Market House. It's all about community, creativity and discovering something deliciously different. The man behind it all, Jake from Jake's Bakes, joined Ross Lannon in the studio.
NEWSWAVE.
Jake, good morning.
Good morning, how's it going?
Very good. Thank you so much for coming into the studio today and doing something that I love to do most on this show, and that's talking about food.
Yeah.
So we're in good hands today. Now, Jake, I want to start off with you. Tell us a little bit about Cornwall Dining Club. I want to know the backstory about how this idea all came about.
Yeah. So I originally used to live in Birmingham and I moved down to Cornwall about 4 years ago. And one of the things that sort of really struck me, and I tell this story quite a lot, so I apologise to any of my customers that listen to this, but when we moved down, the night before we moved down, we were on Just Eat or whatever app, and we looked and there were, I think, something like 1,700 restaurants that were delivered to our house because we'd packed all the cutlery away, put everything away, which was going to get takeaway before we leave. And then we packed everything into the car, we got into the van the next day, drove all the way down to Cornwall, 6-7 hours to get down here, and then we're like, we need another takeaway because we haven't unpacked anything yet. And so we went on to some of the apps, and at the time, 2 of the apps didn't work. Literally, they said, we don't serve your area at all. Oh. And I went on to Just Eat, and I think there were 4 restaurants in total, of which one was delivering from Falmouth to near St Austell, one was delivering from Truro. They were both the same brand, and it was like $15.99 for a delivery fee. And then there were 2 other places that were open that would deliver, and we had to get one of them because we didn't know anywhere or have any recommendations or anything at all. And it's always kind of struck me that there's not really been sort of like a massive food scene here. There's lots of people that really like trying new food and like talking about it, but there's not necessarily kind of lots of different restaurants that are able to cater to that. And a lot of them tend to be kind of pop-up restaurants or food trailers or things at festivals that people get to experience. And that kind of then led down the line eventually. So I run Jake's Bakes in St Austell in the Market House, this lovely sort of grade 2 star listed building. And in the process of me opening that and getting the cafe, and I had lots of conversations with the directors about kind of how we could better use the building and the space and what was available to us. And I was kind of inspired by something that happened back up in Birmingham in an area called Digbeth, which is an area that used to really sort of struggle, very sort of economically deprived. People really struggled to live there and find jobs there. Lots of homelessness, lots of antisocial behaviour. And one of the things that came about there was they started this thing which they called the Dining Club. And it was a slightly different concept. They basically took over a big space and they got lots of food vendors in on like a Friday evening only, and they'd open up. And they were all little pop-up restaurants, and everyone would go along and they'd try them, and then they would have a bit of a dance after, a bit of a club night after that. And it led to kind of this gentrification of Digbeth, because suddenly all these food restaurants realised that they had kind of an audience and that they had customers who were regular and would be able to kind of go there. And some of them decided to then open permanent shops, and some of them decided to, try and actually kind of make the area nicer. And it led to this kind of quite big shift around of the area. And so I was kind of inspired a little bit by that. So I thought, what does St Austell need? St Austell, to me, needs more of a nightlife. I think that's one of the things that in the evening it just gets completely quiet because there's not very much open. But it's a massive investment to try and open a new restaurant, tens of thousands of pounds. Yeah. And people, I think, are sometimes a little bit nervous about doing so because they're not sure that the audience is there. And so we started the dining club as an opportunity to be able to try and kind of give a space to people to kind of have like a restaurant for an evening. Some food vendors that have traditionally just had, as I say, like a little stall at a market, and they're used to kind of getting an order in, they make the order, they churn it out. They don't necessarily do a food service. They don't necessarily even create like a starter, mains, dessert curated menu. We wanted to kind of give them that opportunity. So yeah, we started kind of approaching local food businesses and sort of saying to them, would you be interested in doing this? And they kind of come in and they take over for the whole evening and they create their own menu. And it's really lovely to see because everyone so far has had a really amazing time doing it and really liked the opportunity. And then, gone on to do other things like that in similar places around the rest of Cornwall. Some of them have kind of then tried to kind of open up their own restaurant, hopefully nearby. And it's kind of growing and it offers an opportunity for a bit of a nightlife scene for St Austell. It's only once a month at the moment, but it might potentially grow if we can get enough interest going through it. But hopefully the idea is to try and make it so that there's lots of different types of food coming through and people can try them, and they might not necessarily like all of them, but that's the nice thing about it being just a one-off evening is that next time it'll be completely different.
Yeah, this is what I love about the concept behind it, because from what you've just said, it's an experience. It's not just going out to any old restaurant. You are trying to make a community here. It's coming for great food. It's having a bit of nightlife and the social element of it as well. It sounds brilliant and exactly like you said, what the local area needed. Tell me a little bit about the reaction so far. So how many months deep are you into it now, and what's kind of like the feedback been from the local residents?
So we have run, I think, 7 of them so far. I think our 7th one is about to happen. So our 7th one is a South African night on the 21st of March. And part of the reason behind that is because there's a massive, like St Austell, there's a massive South African community around Cornwall that I didn't really know about before I moved here. But lots of people have come through to my cafe and I've had lots of really lovely conversations with them. So we wanted to kind of try and bring something that we know that maybe people are missing, like a flavour of home, whilst also introducing a new flavour and type of cuisine to people that might not have experienced before. But we've run lots of them. They haven't all been sellouts, but that's to be expected in the same way that a restaurant wouldn't have completely fully booked every single evening. And they only happen for one-offs. So we had a Mexican night with guys at Lemon Salt. And they used to be based at Parr Market, and they never got to do an evening service because that's only open during the daytime. Right. And that was really lovely. It was our first one that kind of kick-started everything. We had cocktails and, it was such amazing food. And everyone kind of came away from it and people were saying, I've never had Mexican food before, or I've only ever tried it and it's been too spicy for me, and lots of different opinions, and they got to try new things that they hadn't been able to before and really enjoyed it. And one of the things that we tried to set out to do was we very intentionally, before the first one, we're thinking a lot about how the layout would be. And so we made the tables communal. So rather than it being kind of like a table of 2 and a table of 4, we made I've got all of my tables from my cafe and kind of laid them out into big rows. So everyone sort of sits with each other. You sit in your little group, but you're sort of rubbing shoulders with somebody else. And everyone responded really, really positively to that, because it was just, they were saying, I've not met these people before, but they were really nice to chat to, and they were arranging to come to the next one together because they'd made some new friends that were interested in food, same as them. And then we've had a few others since. We had Lip Smackers, which was, they kind of did like an Asian fusion sort of evening. That was really lovely. We also ran a completely vegan evening, like a vegan takeover, which was a local chef who is vegan herself but wasn't working in a vegan restaurant and wanted to create this amazing sort of local cuisine. She went to like the local greengrocers and got all of their stuff to help supply all the food that they needed. And it's been really lovely because we've got people coming that are by themselves and they can, because they're not going to be sat on their own in a corner. They get to sit with everyone else around them.
Yeah. That's so cool. I really like that there's so much thought has gone into this. Like you said, there's even down to the table layout, getting people to sit, with people they wouldn't do necessarily meet and make friends. And I love it. So you've already touched briefly there on the next themed night coming up, 21st of March, a South African evening.
Yeah.
I was reading up online about it. You're welcoming a retired chef, a lady called Sue.
Yes.
She's like doing proper authentic African takeover. So tell us a little bit more in depth about what people can expect from that night.
Yeah. So Sue is actually my mother-in-law. And she has always created the most amazing South African food. And we've been begging her for ages and ages and ages to come and do a takeover event, because she is retired and she lives up in Birmingham still. So she's coming down literally to do the event for us. And we've been trying to make it work for a long period of time, because it is amazing food. If you've never had South African food before, it's really sort of, it's just full of flavour. It's really exciting to eat. It's something that I'm really lucky, because this is a menu of things that she cooks me at her house when I go over. So we got to sort of sit and talk about how she could make that on a larger scale, and we've been sort of buying in the right sort of equipment that she needs so that she can run it. So she's been kind of thinking really carefully about what. It's been interesting to have conversations with her where she's got these kind of authentic, quite traditional recipes. And I've kind of then challenged her and gone, okay, well, how could we make that gluten-free? Or how could we make that potentially vegan? Because they're not necessarily concepts that, when she was living in South Africa, were big concepts, because she was there in the 80s. That's what's been quite interesting, and trying to kind of go through all of the recipes and kind of saying, well, we can substitute that out and we can do that, and using sort of my experience on that side to kind of hopefully help her kind of create this menu which lots of people can buy into, because that's often the feedback that we get from people whenever they kind of want to go to different restaurants and stuff, is that the options for them are very limited. And so we try our best to try and encourage the chefs where we can to create hopefully a really interesting, vibrant menu, which with little tweaks can become gluten-free or can have vegan options. So for example, she's doing a bunny chow, which is a curry which is kind of stuffed inside of like half a loaf of bread.
Nice.
And it is so delicious. And the idea is if you eat it sort of like the traditional authentic way, that you tear off bits of the bread, dip into the curry as you eat it. And the idea is that you don't use any cutlery, you don't make a mess. The idea is to kind of like try and kind of shovel it into your face as you eat it. And so we were kind of saying, I can go and source the gluten-free bread. And we were kind of looking, should we use breadcrumbs? And it's okay, well, we'll switch that for gluten-free breadcrumbs. And trying to go through it to make sure that essentially everyone can access it. And then we then spoke about how could we potentially make it sort of meat-free. So she's using a base curry which doesn't have any meat in. And then she's kind of adding in the meat at the end to make it so that people have got that choice. They don't have to obviously have meat if they don't want to. They don't have to necessarily be vegan. They might be vegetarian or pescatarian, or they might just not particularly like that particular type of meat. But it just gives them more choices on quite a small menu that we designed for one evening.
It's great that you're so involved in that as well. It's not just like hiring out and handing everything over to a vendor and then they've got free reign. You're really working with them to curate a menu. As soon as you mentioned there, like you mentioned the bunny chow, my head went to, is that rabbit? Is that rabbit meat?
Yeah. That's just what it's called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that is a South African cuisine or not, but
it may be originally. I would say I'm not an expert, but no, it's not. It's made with chicken.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, like a chicken
sold.
Yeah.
I'm so basic when it comes to my food, especially like meats in particular. But I guess you must have a love for real like global foods, and I guess that's one of the perks of the job. Do you get to like obviously work with the menus, but get a bit of taste testing as well?
Yeah. So I am really lucky to be able to do that. I as you say, like I'm really involved in this process. What I never wanted to be was just I've got a venue space. It's on you, you've got to do all the stuff. You can come in and essentially like pay me to do it, because that was never the idea. It's not about making money from my point of view. It's not a profitable venture from me as a business. The idea is that hopefully most of them have been people that either have approached me and I kind of know who they are vaguely, or there'll be one that so Lip Smackers, for example, I went to a barbecue festival, which was last summer, and that was amazing. And whilst I was there, I got to try their food. And I sort of went to them and went, so I run this thing called Dining Club. Like, would you like to come and do an evening? And that's been really nice. So it's a nice opportunity to kind of go, it's, you know, I've tasted it and I've really enjoyed it. And I feel that the people have got a similar sort of vibe to me in terms of what they want to achieve. Because that's a big part of it. It's being able to have that conversation with them, and, you know, they're coming in and they're using my kitchen and all of my equipment, and we're clearing it out. So there's a certain amount of, I want it to be really nice because it's something I want to buy into. And then in the evening, it's really nice because I kind of act as sort of maitre d', sort of waiter, whatever, general dog's body, whatever is sort of needed, help a little bit with plating up if they need me to. But I kind of help run the front of house bit to kind of welcome everyone and get them in. And we have a bar, and I apply for like a license so that we can have alcohol specifically for that evening. And again, you know, we don't sell the alcohol for like silly amounts of money. We try to kind of have like a bottle of beer is about £3, because it's kind of, the idea is just be that you go and have fun. It's not meant to be like it's going to cost you absolutely loads of money, and here's how we're going to catch you out and we're going to make loads of money off of this side of it. So yeah, and then in the evening I take lots of photos. One of the things that I've gotten quite good at is being able to take photos of food, because it doesn't move and doesn't blink and doesn't do all those things, but I've gotten like quite good at taking pictures of food. So in the evening, as they're serving up the food, I take lots of nice photos for them and I send them to them so that then they can use it as promotion in the future as well. And then I also get to try it, and that's always the best bit of the evening. Like I get to kind of have my own little portion at the end, or it's always nice.
Oh, honestly, it sounds incredible, and just hearing you explain the kind of collaboration process, it sounds like it's a win-win for everyone, from the vendors to you running this, to those that are attending as well. It sounds brilliant. I love it. This idea has so much potential to grow and things like that as well. But you are open to different vendors or people that provide food services to come in and run their themed night as well, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. If it's only run off of people that I know or sort of am aware of because I've been to a place where they are and I get to try their food and I get to go and approach them, or it's people who sort of know me and they kind of contact me and we have a conversation about it, then it's going to be a relatively small radius, much as I do enjoy going to a food festival, and I will actively seek out as much different type of food as I can. But yeah, if anybody is listening, if anybody's watching and they kind of go, oh, actually that sounds like that's something I'd really like to do, and I run a little food van, or I run a little food business, or I've just got a real passion. So for example, with the vegan night, like I mentioned, we had a chef called Jules, and Jules is a vegan and is really, really passionate about vegan food. But she was working in a restaurant that served steak and stuff like that. And it wasn't her passion, because her passion is vegan food. And so it provided her an outlet as well to kind of go, actually, I'm going to create this menu, which is me. And, she poured her, heart and soul into it. And that really reflected on how delicious it was and how much everyone really loved it. And they really loved coming and celebrating. Even if they weren't necessarily vegan themselves, they got to try it. And they got to see that actually they did enjoy it, and they might maybe kind of make a switch a couple of days a week, or they could go to her for some inspiration about recipes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that a food business that already exists. It could be that there's someone who maybe is considering opening a food business. Maybe they're kind of like stuck at the moment because that investment maybe isn't quite there, but they've got a bit of a passion and a bit of a dream, and they want to just, have essentially a restaurant for one night. And that's a really nice opportunity for people, where they don't have to worry about the overheads and they don't have to worry about business rates and all those other things which we get the joy of worrying about, and they can just come and do an evening all about the food that they really love.
It's like an opportunity that you get to have a practice run, which doesn't happen very often in this world. So yeah, it's such a cool concept. And like you've already mentioned, you've had a Mexican night, you've got a South African night coming up. Yeah. I guess the possibilities are endless for Indian, Chinese food.
Yeah, and I know it doesn't. The other nice thing about it is that it doesn't have to be some particularly exotic cuisine. That was never really kind of the intention behind it. It's nice to be able to bring in different flavors that people have never tried before. But equally, it could be that somebody's just really passionate about really high quality burgers, like smash burgers, that sort of stuff, and they want to just run an evening with that. It doesn't have to be that it's something that is from really far afield. We actually ran an evening, I probably meant to mention this earlier on, but I sort of don't talk about that all that much. But on Christmas Eve, we ran a Cornwall Dining Club event, which I ran, which was, for lack of a better term, a soup kitchen, because my wife and I spoke about it when I kind of first started, when I first took over the cafe and sort of first had a shop premises of my own. We spoke, and she said that she really wanted to do something for people on Christmas Eve, because we're both firm believers that like no one should wake up hungry on Christmas Day, and no one should be alone, you know, if we can try and avoid it. So we ran an evening which was completely free. We didn't sell tickets. It was kind of a bit of an abnormal Cornwall Dining Club evening, but we had fresh bread and we had soup and we had various bits and pieces, and I made loads of like treats and all the sort of normal bakes that I do, and we gave them all away for free. And just again had a kind of like a community evening just because. So it's nice to kind of have that umbrella as well, that it doesn't have to necessarily be about making a profit. It doesn't necessarily have to be about a particular restaurant. Obviously, yes, it's nice to give hopefully people a little bit of a cash boost, so that if they are considering opening a restaurant, they've got, you know, like a little bit, maybe a startup fund or a little bit of extra income for them. But yeah, we're sort of open to anything and everything. We want to kind of work with the local community to just provide events for the people of St Austell and the wider area, of course, but just trying to kind of show that there is an appetite for it, if you pardon the pun, just to try and kind of, show that it's something that can work.
It can. Well, I'm going to put it out there now. My top 2 foods, which I would like to see, I'm a proper roasty. I'm a roast fan. So any form of like roast vendors that specialise or want to do maybe a twist on a classic roast, something like that maybe. Or I'm a lasagna boy. Any kind of lasagna club, I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's like everyone has got things that they really love, different types of food. And it's always really nice to meet people who've got like passion about something very specific. So there will be, I guarantee, somewhere in Cornwall, there'll be somebody who is doing, you know, roasts. And it might be that they're doing sort of like hog roasts, and they want to kind of come along and essentially just have a big giant hog roast and use the space. Yeah. That would be great. But yeah, if anybody is ever interested, so our Facebook and TikTok are both Cornwall Dining Club. And I share it a lot on my Jake's Bakes Cornwall page as well. So if you ever kind of want to reach out to us, then do. There's one at the moment sort of that's in the works that I will mention, although we don't have a confirmed date yet, which is a smoke house sort of evening, like a barbecue evening, that linked into the festival I went to last year. Some of the organisers of that kind of got in contact and said that they wanted to run an evening where it will hopefully be kind of very much kind of smokehouse barbecue sort of flavours coming in, and they're experts at it. The organiser of it, they actually kind of sell like the equipment and stuff, as well as being sort of chefs that are really passionate about it. So I'm hopefully going to be able to confirm the date of that one really soon.
Nice, that sounds right up my street as well. I'm just a foodie. My belly's rumbling now, so I guess you've done your job. You've done your job. Now, aside from the Cornwall Dining Club, you mentioned Jake's Bakes there a minute ago as well. Just give our listeners a little plug as well. You also you love your food, you love your baking.
Yeah, I love my food. So I run a bakery cafe in St Austell called Jake's Bakes, obviously out of the Market House. We've been there for nearly a year. Our anniversary is in April for when it opened in the Market House, and that's really lovely as well. That's an opportunity to kind of that's my day-to-day stuff that I do, running there, and it gives me an opportunity to work around the wider town as well and work with different businesses. So one of the things that we launched back in January, I'm going to hold it up for the TikTok stream, was we launched this hospitality adventure, which was just a bit of a sort of an idea about trying to encourage people to kind of go in and use the town and experience the different food businesses in town. And originally I was a bit worried, because I thought if we can get 10 places in town to agree to this kind of competition, essentially, where if all of us put in a little bit of money towards a prize pot, and we kind of have some way of encouraging people to go visit everyone at some point over the space of about 10 weeks. And if they can prove that they've been to them in some way, then we can have like a little pot of money, and we can kind of, you know, do a prize draw for one of the people that sort of supported the local businesses. And I was really worried, because I was sat at home and I thought, are there 10 businesses? and I genuinely panicked. And then I was going through them and I was like, oh wait, there's so many more than 10. We ended up, I think it's 26 different food businesses, hospitality venues in St Austell, in the town centre, not anywhere beyond that. And that ranges from kind of cafes, like myself and Trinity. I'm going to give some people some shout outs because I really like supporting local business, and places like Honey's and Waffled, as well as having a bunch of great bakeries where you've got like Niles and Malcolm Barnicott and Rose, and places like Smorgas who've been there for a really long time, as well as the kind of the big brands, and we've got like Wetherspoons and Subway and all that sort of stuff. And I went round to all of them, and I spoke to all of them, either the manager or the owner, depending upon what sort of structure they've got, and I sort of proposed this idea to them, and every single one of them was on board for it, and they all, in a really lovely way, kind of went, yeah, we'll put in some money towards that, and we'll do this, and we kind of started this competition up. So that's running until the 19th of April, which is the Monday after the Easter holidays, and that's just to try and encourage people to go out and support local, because hospitality really struggles in the winter months. Not just here, that's not just a Cornwall thing, although the lack of tourists helps to kind of make that more of a problem. But just in general, people wrap themselves up in their duvet and they want to stay at home and they want to eat just like a soup. They don't want to kind of venture out into town when it's a bit chilly. So we wanted to kind of do something to kind of remind people who's here, and it's that sort of use it or lose it attitude of, there are these amazing food places. Lots of people have lots of issues with St Austell for various different reasons, but it shouldn't be a lack of being able to kind of go out and have a coffee with your friends, or a lack of being able to go out and have some nice lunch somewhere, specifically in the town. And then you go out to the wider area and there's loads more as well anyway. But yeah, it's just about kind of promoting what's there, to try and have that collaboration. And it's been really nice, because then the aim is that I will then hopefully be launching some other stuff later in the year, kind of more collaboration things between the different places, because it's not about being competitive with each other and it's like, oh, they're your customers or they're my customers. It's like, well, we need to just try and do more to support the town, because the town centre won't get better if we all sort of just stay within our own shops.
Exactly, and that's the overall feel that we're getting from this, whether it's through that new project you're working on or whether it's through the Cornwall Dining Club. It's community, that's the heart, that's the focus here. And everything you're doing sounds incredibly, supportive of the local area, and it's what we love to see. Jake, I wish I had more time with you, but unfortunately I'm running out of time. But it sounds brilliant, and I wish you the best of luck with the upcoming takeover, the South African night, 21st of March. Give us a quick summary, give us a quick reminder. How can people get involved? Do they need to book their places online? Tell us how it works.
Yep, so to make it so that our chefs are able to avoid food waste and make sure that they're as prepared as possible, because remember, they are only coming in for one evening. It's not like they've just got a bunch of stuff in the freezer or in the fridge they can kind of pull up. There is a menu that's created. When you book the tickets, you select your courses. So you pick your starter, your main, your dessert. That then goes through to the chef, so that then they know 2-3 days in advance exactly how many of each course they need to be preparing to get ready for. So there's the Cornwall Dining Club Facebook page, which you can go onto and you can book the tickets through there, or you can pop into Jake's Bakes in the Market House and you can buy tickets in person. Online there's a slight booking fee, just because there is for those sorts of things. In person there's not, so if you want to save a little bit of money, then you can do it in person. And then it's a great evening where there's going to be a real sort of community spirit. There's drinks, there's amazing food that's going to be created, and hopefully it's going to be another really lovely evening, and then we can continue to look to the next one.
Sounds amazing. And there's lots of positive feedback, comments coming in, a message on our stream here saying definitely going to pop into the shop next time I'm in town. It sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today, and best of luck with the next theme night.
Thank you for having me.
No worries.
NEWSWAVE.
There are just days left for Cornwall Climate Care to reach their crowdfunder targets, money that will keep their free climate education programme running in schools across the county. To explain why this funding matters and the real impact it has on young people here in Cornwall, Cheryl Gordon spoke with Nicola Nuttall, Director of Climate Care Cornwall.
NEWSWAVE.
Sure. So it's a charity that's been going for around 6 years now. It started as the brainchild of two people who came together over COVID. And the idea was to look at how people in Cornwall were responding to the bigger climate picture. So, sometimes it's quite easy for us to be overwhelmed by the fact that these are big issues. There are things that are happening that are affecting the whole world, some places worse than others. And you either feel that's got nothing to do with me, that's somewhere on the other side of the world, or more likely, what can I possibly do to make any difference to the changes that are going on? Claire and Bryony came together as a way of utilising their skills as filmmakers to really capture some of those amazing stories of what actually is happening in Cornwall. So there are, as we've seen in the last few weeks even, or few months over the winter, quite a few challenges around climate change in and affecting Cornwall. But there are also many different activities that are going on, whether that be group-led or individuals or research or particular practice that's happening. So a series of documentaries have been made over the last 5 years to really delve into some of those stories. And they're often told by local people. It's their stories. And, you know, sometimes it's quite easy with climate to be very advocacy-based, so very much about, you must be doing this. This is the change that we've got to make. And it becomes a kind of quite confrontational thing. What Cornwall Climate Care is really keen to do is to show the positives, show what's actually possible, show what's being done, and assist people in finding ways that they can add their weight, their time, their money, their support, if you like, to making that change happen. So it's a really great charity that has been looking at how to galvanise a lot of brilliant stuff that's happening in Cornwall, utilising the power of film. And we're very proud to say that David Attenborough has commented and commended us on our films as well, which is just amazing. So that's pretty much what Cornwall Climate Care's around. And we do work with local groups. We do screenings in lots of different places, and we do a big educational programme that's based in schools in and around predominantly Cornwall, but I must admit we do edge slightly over the border sometimes.
Now, you're aiming to raise 20,000 in under 6 weeks. What will this funding allow you to do, and what difference will it make to a number of students and communities that you can reach?
Over the last few years, we've been running a really successful education programme that's been going into schools, after schools groups, working with some, but not as many as we'd like yet, but out of school kind of youth groups, children community groups and so on. We all know that the education system is stretched, whether that's because of the national curriculum, so everything has to tie in with that, the fact that budgets have been cut so badly that there's not a lot of money to bring activities into schools and people to come in and talk to children unless those services are free. Now, a few years ago, we were really fortunate to be awarded a legacy when somebody died, which paid for a lot of educational work to be done. So we didn't charge and haven't charged for any of that educational work to happen. And we're at a point now where that legacy funding has come to an end, unfortunately. We're seeking funding to keep on those free activities as much as we can because we know there's a need. So this funding would really allow us to carry on doing a lot of that free activity in communities, in schools, helping people feel empowered. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but quite a few people, even very young children, are experiencing what's called climate anxiety. So they're genuinely frightened about what's happening. So sometimes people feel kind of disempowered. They just don't know what to do. They don't even know where to start. So we look at all of that. You know, what can you do with your family? What can you do in your school group? What can you do on your local beach? So our next step, as well as working with more children and some of the same children, because remember, it's always changing. New children come in, new children come into the school kind of as entry, you know, reception level, but right the way through. But also we're working with new teachers all the time. So we really want to expand that area where you might call it train the trainers, you know, so working with the teachers. So you get even more of a dispersal of good practice and activities and how they can do it without us necessarily having to go into those classrooms and those community groups as well.
You've already reached nearly 9,000 young people through your programme. What kind of reactions or changes have you seen in the students after taking part in these workshops?
So we see immediate changes. So, you know, if you run a session with anyone, whether you do a talk or a radio show, you know, or you're engaging with an audience, you see the immediate responses, whether that emails coming in from teachers or from parents or from children, whether that's them, how they're reacting in the classroom. So you see the changes in their kind of, you know, they might go from being a bit bored and not really understanding it, not really engaging, right the way through to them being the one that's putting their hand up the whole time, you know, wanting to ask the questions answer the questions and so on. You start to see, and it's hard to describe, but if you ever do talks or sessions in classrooms or with groups, we've had responses from teachers and groups around the changes that they've been able to implement within the school itself. So what changes have happened there and that kind of roll-on effect.
For anyone who wants to support the Crowdfunder, what are the best ways to get involved?
So in terms of how to find out a little bit more, is you can go to our website, which is www.cornwallclimate.org. So cornwallclimate.org. You can find a link there to take you through to Crowdfunder, and you'll also see a lot more about what we do. So it gives you a little bit more of a background to that as well. And I'd say spread the word as much as anything. You know, speak to your friends and family, your colleagues at work. Think about how you might be able to support this really, really important thing. There's something here about really empowering our children and our local communities in Cornwall and helping them find their way.
NEWSWAVE.
Right, you're listening to NEWSWAVE here on Chaos Radio with me, Tom Howe. A man from Cornwall who used to cycle 2 miles home from school each lunchtime to avoid sitting with classmates is speaking out about living for decades with undiagnosed social anxiety as part of a new NHS campaign tackling misconceptions around common anxiety disorders. Neil, who first experienced symptoms at school, joins Cheryl Gordon.
NEWSWAVE.
Well, lots of it, I didn't obviously know what was happening. I mean, when I was at school, like even at primary school, I was super nervous. I'm sure other people were. And at secondary school, when the teacher's looking around trying to pick someone to ask a question or read out loud, I mean, I was really had quite intense anxiety. And I don't know how others feel. And, you know, everyone's a bit nervous in those situations, but I felt it excessively. And then perhaps everyone else would go for lunch together and they'd sit quite happily chatting to each other at lunchtime. And I just found that I was so kind of anxious and tongue-tied that I just chose to cycle all that way home, kind of most lunchtimes, rather than sit down and feel so anxious.
What was it like to finally have a name for what you'd been experiencing for so many years?
Yeah, it was amazing. When I first found out, when the internet came around, like I suppose around 2000 for me, and I could actually type in the words anxious in social situations, it was really brilliant to know that I wasn't the only one, that it was a kind of condition that people can develop or can stay with them, and other people struggle as well.
When you eventually sought help through your GP and started CBT, what were the techniques or moments that made the biggest difference in helping you rebuild confidence?
I think having a focus, you know, because when you've got social anxiety, so many situations can be difficult. Like lunchtime at work for me was the hardest thing. It wasn't a break at all. It was absolute stress of having to, you know, make small talk and banter with other people that seemed so much more confident than me. It was just having someone to talk to. So I'd never really talked to anyone about my social anxiety, just being free to explain how I felt and for the therapist to understand and to just gently encourage me to do a little bit more. Like she asked me to talk to people when I stood next to them in the queue. I think I had to talk to 3 different people a day. She taught me some sort of calming and acceptance techniques so I didn't get so incredibly anxious, and I just had some small ways to reduce my anxiety and probably most importantly, just completely focusing on the situation, you know, really engaging in the conversation and the person I'm talking with rather than just trying to fight my anxiety and imagining what they were thinking about me. So all those little skills and techniques made such a difference over time.
What are some of the misconceptions that people have about mental health conditions, do you feel?
Well, for me, you know, because I've now created a charity and there are misconceptions that, for instance, social anxiety is just shyness, where if you've actually experienced the condition and the intensity of the symptoms and you just can't be yourself in the ways that you can in other situations, and even Christmas meals with your family or relatives can be so hard, that people just don't realise that the anxiety can reach such a level that it is disabling and makes it hard to even work for some people or to socialise and to mix. You know, people aren't aware that social anxiety in particular even exists. So they think they're the only one. They have no idea there's help out there.
Yeah, it's walking in someone's shoes that may be struggling with this. People don't realise, and unless they're in that situation, how you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah, they can't really. It is quite hard to imagine because it's not just a little bit anxious. It can, get quite out of hand, and people end up avoiding. They may not do many of the social things other people do because it's just too hard. Some people find their work's limited because they find the interaction at work so difficult that they choose occupations that are less stressful for them and limit their lives in various ways.
You've now set up a charity to support others. What would you say to people in Cornwall who might be dismissing their symptoms as just shyness and aren't sure whether to seek help?
Yeah, I'd encourage them to look at the website because there are pages on the website. There's an A to Z, and under D, there's differences between shyness and social anxiety. And once you begin to read about the condition and understand how common it is and how you can get caught up in a pattern of avoiding things, so if you don't do them very often, you're more nervous about them, you can really badly judge your own performance and think that other people don't like you or think you're a little bit strange. And again, you start avoiding things. I think once you're aware of some of the issues described on the website, you can begin to gently push your barriers and potentially have NHS Talking Therapy, which is this campaign they're doing at the moment. It's brilliant. It's free. You can self-refer, so you don't even need to talk to the GP about it. And if you're really struggling, having at least some help can make a big difference.
Neil, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate your time today, and good luck with your charity. We'd love to hear more at Chaos Radio about the great work you're doing. So, good luck.
Thank you so much.
NEWSWAVE.
Right, from the 6th of April, sole traders and landlords will need to start using digital tax reporting. This rollout forms part of the government's plan to transform the UK's tax system to support economic growth. Here to make sense of it all is our friend from the HMRC broadcast team, Ruth Forrest.
NEWSWAVE.
So, making tax digital is a kind of blanket term, really, that we use to describe all things tax reform and changes to the actual systems and the nuts and bolts stuff that underpin how people do tax and how they tell us about their tax obligations. It has already started. So people listening who, for example, have got their own business and who have to submit VAT returns to us, they will already know about this and they'll be already doing VAT returns, etc., in line with making tax digital. But it's been in the news a lot recently because one of the biggest changes in the Making Tax Digital space is happening from April this year, involving income tax. And basically, if you are a self-employed person or a landlord and you earn more than £50,000 from either being self-employed or a landlord in the year, you will have to start telling us about your tax obligations, your income and expenses via Making Tax Digital. Now that goes live from the 6th of April this year. Next year, so the 6th of April 2027, people who earn between £30,000 and £50,000 from either self-employed income or landlord income, they will come into Making Tax Digital. And then finally, from 2028, people who earn over £20,000, they will come into this as well, again, if they're self-employed or landlords. So we're really just letting people know that this is coming, letting them know what's involved in getting ready for Making Tax Digital, and just also trying to make sure people got the right information, because there's been a lot of scaremongering stuff in the media, things that would make people panic. And again, we just want to reassure people that they don't need to panic. Yeah, this is a change, but it's not as scary as you think, and there's lots of support there to get you through and get you ready for it.
So just a reminder, who do the new rules apply to and what do they need to do differently?
From the 6th of April this year is when this kicks off for income tax. And the first batch of this is people who earn £50,000 or more from landlord income, so property income, or being self-employed. Now, what it's going to mean in practice is that there'll be differences to how you tell us about your income and expenses. So the information that you'll be reporting is exactly the same as you report on your tax returns now. now, but how you do it is going to be very different. So from the 6th of April, what you'll do if you fall into that category is you will submit quarterly updates. I kind of like to call them snapshots to us at HMRC, and there'll be snapshots of the income that you've earned during a 3-month period and any expenses associated with that. Now, to do that, you'll need specialist software, and there's lots of details out there of the software that you can get on gov.uk, various different products available depending on the type of work you do and business you have. You'll submit these snapshots to us using the software, and then when it gets to the 31st of January, and that thing that we always talk about on Chaos, about everybody panicking to find the receipts and get the return done and all of that, that shouldn't happen with Making Tax Digital, because the return that you submit to us in January is just going to be made up of those quarterly snapshots that you've already sent. So it should be almost like a kind of copy and paste job or a lift and shift, because all the information is already there, and you'll transfer that over to the return, or rather the software will do it for you and submit it directly through to us. So a bit of a change in terms of getting used to the software, etc. But hopefully once you are used to that, it should make life a lot quicker and easier for people.
Now, mistakes happen, especially with new systems. If someone gets something wrong or submits a quarterly update late, what are the consequences?
The first thing to say, and I know that people really panic about penalties, etc. from us, because at the moment, if you, for example, file a tax return late, there's £100 penalty that you get, and then there are payments. There are further penalties for every day that it's late and 3 months that it's late, and penalties for late payments and all of that. With Making Tax Digital, for the first year, so from the 6th of April this year to the 6th of April next year, the first year of the new system, there'll be no penalties whatsoever for anyone, because we realise that, you know, whether it's us or customers out there, everybody's getting used to this. Everybody's finding their way, finding their feet, etc. with it. So no penalties at all in the first year. After that, the penalty system is changing quite significantly. So you wouldn't get a financial penalty at all until you've got 4 what we're calling points for late submissions. So it's going to work a bit like the driving licence, where there's various strikes, and then you've got, for example, a penalty to pay or a course to go on or something. You would have 4 of those before you would get a £200 penalty. So it's really trying to make the system fairer and recognise the fact that we all have things happen, occasional slip-ups happen. We don't want to be penalising people for those. But of course, with that new system as well, the appeal processes are still there. So if you have a late submission, if there's a problem, you can still appeal to us in the normal way. If it was that you were getting a cash penalty, there is an appeal process to get that reversed.
What about people who generally struggle with digital tools? Is there any help available, or can they apply for an exemption?
Yes, they can. That's a really important point, actually. So the first thing I would say to anyone, if you're listening to this and thinking that might apply to me, visit gov.uk and search Making Tax Digital. Now, we've put a checking tool on there for people to use. Very simple, a bit like the one that I've referred people to before for self-assessment. It will ask you various questions about what you do, what type of income you have, etc. You answer yes or no, and then it will tell you if you need to come into Making Tax Digital, and you follow the prompts to get that set up and find out about the software and all the rest of it. Also on there is a form for people to fill in if they wish to apply for an exemption. Now, an exemption from this is available for anyone, for example, who is digitally excluded, and that could be for various reasons. They're not online. It might be due to disability and the system's not being accessible. It might be due to age, etc. So again, if you're listening to this thinking it does apply to me, but I am not going to be able to do that, gov.uk, if you search that or get some support from a friend or family member or your tax agent, if you have one, search Making Tax Digital, and there is a form there you can fill in to get an exemption if you need one.
Looking ahead, how will Making Tax Digital benefit sole traders and landlords in the long run? And what difference do you hope it will make to the UK's tax system overall? It's
already been live for a couple of years now, and the feedback we've had from them is that they like the system. When they got used to it, they found it really helpful. They found that it was saving them time and money, because a lot of the software that you use to submit Making Tax Digital returns has got prompts in there for things like tax allowances that you might be entitled to, maybe expense details that you haven't put in. So people like the fact that it's educating them and they're not missing out on those things that they're entitled to. So the income tax system should be the same. And I think, no matter how careful or vigilant you are, when you've got, for example, you might have separate tax tax software, bookkeeping software, you might have spreadsheets, you might have hard copies of records, and then you've got to input them into our return system. No matter how careful you are, there's always going to be a degree of error with that because you've got so many systems that you're navigating. Hopefully with this, it's going to bring everything into one system and make that easier for people. So we hope that it will save people time, money, that it will in the longer term be easier to use. From our perspective, we hope that it makes things fairer and more accurate. Our mantra at HMRC is not about people paying more or less tax. It's paying the right tax when you owe it at the right time. And we really hope that this new system will help people and make it easier for people to do that.
NEWSWAVE.
Last but by no means least this week, the King and Queen visited St Austell to meet community groups and hear about work being done in the town to support young people. His Majesty toured Holy Trinity Church and the Market House to learn about regeneration plans before being joined by the Queen, who also met staff from Little Harbour Hospice to help mark its 15th anniversary. Joe Allen and myself headed into town to chat to some of the people hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal couple.
NEWSWAVE.
My name's Lynn and I'm from St Blaise.
And Lynn, you've come here today to hopefully catch a glimpse of the King and Queen, and this isn't the first time you've seen them.
No, I've met His Royal Highness at the Royal Cornwall show before and shook his hand twice, which was thrilling. And I met his mother, the late Queen, in Weston-super-Mare with my daughter and shook her hand and gave her flowers.
And what does it mean to you to get the chance to see them and to show off the town today?
Oh, everything. I think it's wonderful that they're coming into town and to see the lovely new market house, how they've renovated it. It's thrilling for the town to get such an honour of this sort of visit and this profile to St Austell.
My name's Damien and me and my son are local, so we just live around the corner. So.
And Damien, today the King and Queen are visiting St Austell. Why did you feel it important to come down here and so early as well to show your support?
Well, it's not once in a lifetime you get the King arriving on your doorstep. Because for me, it's just around the corner, he's a bit of a fan. So.
And how important is it for a place like St Austell as well to have such a high-profile visit?
You don't. Like I said again, you don't often see the King turn up. So, I suppose it's quite important. Might brings a little bit of attention to the area. I think he was here for the charity. I see the charity people help the youth.
I'm Chris Netherton. I'm administrator for the building, and I live in Hewerswater.
And Chris, we're having a very special visit from the King and Queen later today. What does that mean to you and to the town as well?
It's just an amazing opportunity. As far as I know, His and Her Majesties have not actually been to St Austell before, and especially where they're coming to the Market House, it's a golden opportunity for us. And we're very, very keen to do incredible things in here, and we're hoping this will help by putting the Market House on the map in St Austell.
NEWSWAVE.
Okay, that's all we've got time for on this week's edition of NEWSWAVE. A big Chaos Radio thank you to Jake from the Cornwall Dining Club, Nicole from Cornwall Climate Care, to Neil on behalf of that NHS mental health awareness campaign, to Ruth at HMRC, and to the local residents reacting to the royal visit in St Austell. As ever as well, a final thank you to you for listening and helping support local journalism to thrive. To catch up on all our coverage, as well as to check out our extensive back catalogue of interviews and shows, head on over to chaos.radio. And remember, if you have a local news story that you'd like to share with us, email news@chaos.radio or search Chaos Radio UK across socials. NEWSWAVE has been produced and presented by me, Tom Howe, and is a Chaos Radio production for the Cornwall Community Media Network.
NEWSWAVE.
Chaos.radio. Music, podcasts, entertainment.